Jay, he asked earlier, he said, where would you rank the importance of this defensive coordinator hire compared to previous hires, especially given what this team can do in 2025? Yeah, I think that's a phenomenal question. It's certainly up there. That, especially in this, if the chapter, if you could like write a book of Clemson football under Dabo Swinney and like break it all down into chapters, I think this is the most important hire of this chapter of Clemson football. I guess you could define it as like 2021 ish to the present. I think this is the most important hire and probably top 2 or 3 most important hires he's made, at Clemson. I just, when you consider what you're bringing back on this side of the ball, like you said, offensively, and the talent that you have defensively that you weren't able to get the most out of this past season, there's going to be high expectations to go and win this league again, and not just make the playoff, but make some, do some real damage in the playoff.
Right.
So I think, this is a massive hire for a lot of reasons, and because of the perception of the program, you're kind of teetering a little bit. Winning the ACC, I think, was a massive. People have, crapped all over the ACC and Clemson, and it's like it doesn't mean anything and all of that. Winning the ACC, but ultimately, winning the ACC was one of the most important things that Clemson did this season, because without that, the perception of the program is a lot different heading into this offseason. And that playoff appearance was, I think it was invaluable. You didn't win the game, and you certainly didn't play well for a lot of it, but I think that was invaluable for kind of the perception of the program and the direction. And so this is a really big opportunity for Dabo to put an exclamation point on what was a very rocky, but ultimately still successful season, largely successful season, and, parlay that into what could be a really special 2025 season, and make the point that, hey, all the narratives about me being done and how I'm, my way of doing things and my tenure at the top of the sport is over, is just not, it's just not true. And so, this is a massive hire for those reasons. And it proved, it's a chance for him to prove again that, he still is one of the premier coaches in the sport, and he still swings a big stick when it comes to, his pull and his like gravitas, or whatever word you want to use, in the sport of college football. So it's massive, Jay. It's huge.
Yeah, this is one of the most important hires in recent history at Clemson, because of all the reasons that you stated, Jordan. The gravity of what could be in 2025 for this Clemson football team, with the amount of talent returning. I talked earlier about how we were just losing to the portal, and replacing it with high school talent, and that caused our roster to get younger and younger every year. Well, that won't be the case in 2025. We will be a largely veteran team when it comes to the big contributors on the team. And it's something that you don't want to waste, right? For probably, 2 to 3 seasons there, Clemson wasted a championship level defense with an offense that couldn't get out of its own way. And this season it got kind of flipped. The offense kind of figured it out. It feels like that we're finally in the right direction when it comes to the direction of the offense under Garrett Riley in year 2. It was much improved. I expect even more steps forward in 2025 in year 3 under Garrett Riley, especially with a quarterback like Cade returning and how much he's grown. So you really need a guy, a defensive coordinator, to come in and quickly turn it around and utilize the talent to the level at which it should look like. Because if you look at the roster and you look at the star ratings and you look at the talent, Clemson's defense should have been much better this season. And ultimately, I think that's why Dabo Swinney had to make the change. He said it. I think I specifically remember him saying at one point in time during the season in an interview, we're way too talented on defense to be this bad. That's not something that Dabo Swinney typically says, but it's true. So I think it can't be overstated how big of a hire this is. It's got to be somebody that comes in and delivers immediately. That's what we need, because 2025 could be a special year for Clemson if it all works out. That's a big if, but you hire the right guy and he comes in and utilizes the talent, it could be a pretty special year for the Tigers.
Isaac asks, all of Dabo says all of Dabo's latest hires have been home runs. I think the DC hire will be too. Yeah, I mean, if you follow the trend, and it hasn't just been the coordinators, it's been the assistant hires too. Obviously, Garrett Riley, and then well, honestly, you can go back to 2022. With the replacement of Todd Bates with Nick Eason.
Yep.
And then obviously Garrett Riley, then Matt Luke. Now
Chris Rumpf.
Yeah, Chris Rumpf. It's very the trend is very clear as far as how Dabo has slowly, hasn't been as fast as maybe some people wanted, but slowly kind of overhauled this staff, and his mentality has shifted a little bit with how he wants to go about these hires. So all indications, it's going to be an outside hire, and it's going to be a hire that I think is going to be a big name. So should be excited for that.
Absolutely.
Jay says, I think most figured Streeter would get another year since the offense technically didn't improve. Boy, did he fool us. Yeah, I mean, it was a shocking thing. We both fully expected Brandon Streeter to be the offensive coordinator in 2023. We felt that, we had our fair share of frustrations with that offense in 2022.
Yes.
But it was a marked improvement from 2021. They ran the football really well. DJ did improve, despite his, the kind of the collapse toward the end of the year. Mm-hmm. He did win the ACC. And you were, honestly, maybe an Antonio Williams fumble away from the college football playoff. So we thought that, the offense would still had its clunkiness and its struggles against better defenses, but it was much better, and you were returning a lot of guys from that team, and we were like, I think Brandon Streeter is probably going to get another shot at this.
Yeah, I was convinced that Brandon Streeter was going to get another year. Yeah. One, you mentioned the improvement. Two, he played at Clemson. There's an award named after Brandon Streeter, the Brandon Streeter Award at Clemson, right? He played for Dabo. He had been on staff for years. You wouldn't expect a guy like that would be a one and done type of hire. But to Dabo's credit, he saw that the offense needed to be completely revamped, and he didn't believe Brandon Streeter was a guy that was capable of doing that. So he made the move. So yeah, it shocked everybody. I wanted him to move on from Brandon Streeter, but I didn't think that. I thought it would be at least another season. And I'm pretty sure we said that on the channel then. You guys can go back and look, but I thought for sure he'd at least get a second season. But to Dabo's credit, he made the change, and turns out he made a really good hire in Garrett Riley. Although year one there were some question marks, but year two was
even this year you had your
and even this year at times, there's still some growing pains, but I think a lot of people forget that Garrett Riley is a very young coach. He hasn't, he don't have 10 years of experience calling offenses. He's still, I think, evolving as a play caller. He's evolving in, what he likes to do and his system and tweaking things. So, I think it's headed in the right direction, though. I think Dabo made the correct hire on the offensive side of the ball.
And I think most importantly, I mean, you look at the development of Cade Klubnik.
There you go. You can definitely point to that, because he made a massive jump this year.
Yeah. I mean, this is the first quarterback that you feel like made significant improvement year to year, from one year to the next. at Clemson in a while, honestly. I mean, even going back to Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence, like those guys were. I don't want to say they were largely the same because I think despite what some people say, I do think Trevor Lawrence actually did get better at Clemson over
Yeah,
his year, but it wasn't a significant like jump. Like,
right.
and Deshaun Watson was he was just really good in 2015 and 2016. Like, he was just elite both years. So I mean, it was hard to get better. Although, and honestly, in 2016, he turned the ball over a lot more. So
A whole lot more.
yeah. So like it's been a while since you've been able to say, man, like this quarterback is a completely different player than when he first got here. And that is what Cade Klubnik is. He's legitimately a top quarterback in the sport. And I did not think that was what we would be talking about at the end of this year. We were just hoping he could he can make the layups. And
Yeah.
now he's at the point where he's creating.
He's starting to develop into a quarterback that you win because of.
Yes.
So
not just win with.
Yeah, not just win with. Like he's a major contributor and the reason you are winning. And that's not something that was being said about Cade at the beginning of the year.
Nope.
But I mean, he put the work in, and I mean, it's not just a little. He made a massive jump this year, and the fact that we got him back for another season, I hope we do not waste that.
Yeah.
Because as we can see as Clemson fans, we got spoiled with Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence basically back to back with the gap year of Kelly Bryant. No disrespect to Kelly Bryant, he was a really good quarterback, but we got a little spoiled thinking that you just roll in the next quarterback, and we figured out with the quickness that was not the case. Even if you do bring in the 5-star guy, they don't always work out. But luckily for us, Cade has, and it just goes to show that what Dabo says a lot, and what a lot of coaches in college say, like football's a developmental game. I mean, Cade as a freshman was not good, So, and he's gotten better each and every year. So,
Yep. Jay says, asks, how much control do you think Dabo gives this new DC? Will he be able to get new assistants? Well, I think ultimately that depends on what staff changes are what potential more staff changes are made defensively. But typically, no, like Dabo does not.
No, Dabo does the hiring.
Yeah, he typically does the hiring.
You're not going to see a DC come in here and just bring in his whole staff with him. Like that's not going to happen.
That's not even really common practice anywhere. Like that doesn't really. At some schools, yeah, like occasionally, but normally, especially at the bigger programs, the higher level, the higher caliber programs, like you don't see like them make coordinator hires and that coordinator brings brings their whole staff with it. Like you didn't, like when Jim Knowles took the Ohio State job, he didn't take his Oklahoma State staff with him.
Like I think Garrett Riley brought one guy with him.
Yeah,
as an analyst type role, off-field type role. But that was it. And that's how Dabo will roll with the new DC hire. He's not gonna, he's not gonna be able to walk in and get rid of the entire defensive staff. That's just not how.
I'm sure he'll have input, and Dabo will.
Oh yeah, of course.
He's not going to just be able to.
Well, Dabo's not going to hire a guy that doesn't fit in with, what's at Clemson right now. So that's not going to be a problem. But no, typically all of that is all decided through Dabo Swinney. Not that obviously Garrett Riley and whoever the new DC is has input over their staff, I'm sure. But ultimately, that decision is made with one guy and one guy only, and that's Dabo Swinney.
Yep. Isaac says, offense and defense concerns flipped with DJ. We wasted a national championship level defense. Yep.
Yes, we did.
That 2021 defense, man, I feel for them. I think about that group every day. That was a special group.
Those dudes, they left it all on the field, though, man. They were
legitimately, they were the different. Like we would have won 4 games, 4 games if our
Yeah,
defense.
we would have. Yeah, we would have been a 3-win team
Yeah.
without that defense. And luckily, they didn't just give up, because had they, I mean, they had every reason to give up.
Yeah.
They knew the offense wasn't going to do anything, but they trotted out there and spent crazy amounts of minutes on the field trying to will us the victories, which they did. So,
Yep. Makes me sad. I think
so
about all
sad. So much wasted talent.
the Brian Bursees, the Miles Murphys, the Tyler Davises, the Xavier Thomas, KJ Henry. You still had James Skalski, Trenton Simpson, Andrew Booth.
Jeez, man. Wow.
You had some dudes, man.
You had some dudes.